Most men confuse being liked with being respected. This video will dismantle that illusion. If you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, or patronized, it is not because you lack value. It is because you have not made yourself dangerous enough to command fear and strategic enough to command respect. Today, we correct that. There exists in every soul a quiet desperation, the longing to be acknowledged, to be feared, to walk into a room and have the air shift in your favor. But the world is not moved by good intentions, nor does it kneel before kindness. Power is the only true currency, and respect is its blood-stained coin. This is not a lesson for the soft-hearted. It is for the one who has tasted humiliation and decided never to swallow it again, for those who wish not just to survive, but to reign in the minds of others, subtly and without mercy. Today, I will not teach you how to be admired. I will teach you how to be respected dangerously, so that men hesitate before speaking, women calculate before deceiving, and enemies bow before attacking. You believe respect is earned through merit, through honesty, kindness, or doing what is right. But the world does not operate on fairness. It operates on perception, and perception is a weapon forged in silence, sharpened by control. So let me ask you, do people respect you for who you are, or for who they think you are? There is a reason rulers wear crowns even when no threat is present. Symbols matter. Images create obedience long before swords are drawn. Consider César Borgia. He was not born into total power. He manufactured it. With ruthless precision, he executed Ramiro de Orco, his own lieutenant, not because he was disloyal, but to create the illusion that César was just, merciful, and unshakably in command. Blood was not the message. Control over perception was. You see, the masses rarely care about truth. They care about how truth feels. They will obey a man who looks like a lion, even if beneath the mane lies a trembling rat. So, who are you projecting to the world? Do your clothes, posture, silence, and words suggest confidence or apology? Do you enter a room as if you belong there, or as if you're asking for permission? The first step to being dangerously respected is not actual power. It is looking like you possess it. It is making others assume you are not to be trifled with. The Roman Senate respected Augustus because he seemed restrained, controlled, modest. They did not realize he was building an empire beneath their noses. That is the art of optics. You do not scream for respect. You compose yourself so that silence says it for you. Psychologically, humans are wired to rely on heuristics, mental shortcuts that reduce complexity. They judge you within seconds. Voice tone, eye contact, symmetry, posture. They are not analyzing your soul. They are scanning for dominance or submission. This is biology, not morality. And the one who masters these optics wins. You've met these people. The man who walks slowly, speaks little, but commands every eye. The woman whose gaze burns through distraction and makes men hesitate. They are not asking for power. They are inhabiting it. And the tragedy. Most of them are no more capable than you. But they understood one principle you did not, that being perceived as powerful is more important than actually being powerful. At least in the beginning. The mind plays tricks. We project onto the composed man a wisdom he may not possess. Onto the silent woman a danger we dare not test. And in this projection, respect is born. So, you want to be respected. Stop chasing approval. Stop explaining yourself. Stop broadcasting your weakness in the name of authenticity. Craft an image. Shape it ruthlessly. Let others fill in the gaps with their own fear. That is the first step in your transformation, not into a tyrant, but into someone whose presence changes the atmosphere. Think of the snake. It does not roar. It does not chase. It waits, coiled, silent until needed, and for that reason all give it space. Become the snake, master your optics. Study your reflection not for vanity, but for strategy. What emotion does your face reveal when at rest? How do you occupy space? Do your eyes drift or pierce? Every gesture is a campaign. Every glance, a negotiation. Look like you have nothing to prove, and the world will assume you don't need to. Is this deception? Of course. But understand this, everyone is deceiving. You're just learning to do it consciously. Perception builds your fortress long before you lay brick. If your enemies believe you are strong, if your allies suspect you know something they don't, if strangers feel unsettled in your presence, then you have done well. Respect in its rawest form is simply fear dressed in dignity. The question is, will you keep dressing for comfort or start dressing for war? Because the man who controls perception controls outcomes. And once you understand this, you will never beg for recognition again. You will command it. But perception is only the beginning. Once you've become the illusion, what then? We move next to something more dangerous, more primal. The art of implied threat, controlled violence. Are you ready to be feared without ever raising your voice? Let's continue. You know the power of the sword, the force of open violence. But what of the power of not drawing it? What if the mere presence of the sword, its unseen weight, can command obedience without a single blow struck? This is the art you must master, not the brutality of battle, but the silent menace that precedes it. The art of implied threat, controlled violence. Have you ever noticed how fear often stems from uncertainty? From the possibility of pain rather than pain itself? When the wolf bares its teeth but does not bite, the flock scatters. When a ruler's hand twitches near the dagger, his enemies tremble in the shadows. Look to history's greatest tacticians, to the prince who ruled not by kindness, but by calculated intimidation. Consider Louis XI of France. They called him the spider, not for weaving webs of silk, but webs of suspicion and fear. He never needed to massacre his foes openly. His reputation alone made them yield. A whispered threat in the dark is more potent than a roar in the daylight. Why? Because control lies not in the act itself, but in the possibility of the act. This is psychology laid bare. Humans are programmed to avoid risk. They fear loss more than they desire gain. And the shadow of violence, lurking just out of reach, twists their decisions. Have you felt it? The chilling pause when a word is left unsaid, but understood. The silent warning behind a calm glance. This is your arsenal. Do not waste your power on empty threats. They will be ignored or worse, mocked. No, you must craft your presence like the edge of a knife. Sharp, poised, ready to cut, but never flailing wildly. Control is maintained by restraint. Consider the ancient samurai. They wielded their swords with a grace that spoke of deadly precision. Yet they did not strike unless it was certain and decisive. The threat was constant, but the violence was measured. In your own life, how often do you expose all your cards? How often do you let your fury loose like a storm, only to find it dissipate, leaving you weakened? Learn to hold back. A single, well-placed threat can accomplish what 1,000 angry words cannot. This is the lesson of César Borgia again. He executed with brutality, yes, but the moment he disposed of Ramiro de Orco was not just justice. It was theater. It was a message, a promise, a warning. It said, I will act, but only when I choose. Imagine the fear that must have settled in the hearts of his enemies, not knowing if they were next. Controlled violence breeds hesitation, and hesitation is the weapon of the powerful. Do you want to paralyze your adversaries without lifting a finger? Then cultivate the unknown. The space between what you say and what you mean. The pause before your action. Master the art of ambiguity. A glance that can kill, a smile that can betray. Your control is in the restraint you show and the readiness you project. Psychologists call this ambiguous threat. It's the uncertainty that drives others mad with caution. The less they know about your limits, the more they fear crossing them. Have you ever met someone whose calm unnerved you? Whose quiet made your mind race? Who smiled while your blood ran cold? That person understands this principle. You must become that person. But beware the temptation to act rashly. Violence, once unleashed, is difficult to contain. It can turn the hunter into the hunted. Hence, the wisdom strike once, strike hard, then vanish into silence. The aftermath of your controlled strike is silence, the kind that echoes in the minds of those you touched. This is the difference between a tyrant and a master strategist. The tyrant burns everything to ash. The master leaves enough smoke to sow doubt and watch enemies destroy themselves in confusion. You see, power is not in the blow. It is in the threat of the blow. And the most dangerous men and women know how to wield that threat like a shadowy cloak. Visible enough to warn, invisible enough to terrify. This is your challenge. To become a presence that chills the bone without ever showing the true extent of your might. Control violence in your life like a conductor controls an orchestra, with precision, timing, and cold calculation. To those who cross you, let your silence be the louder threat. Let them wonder. Let them hesitate. Because hesitation breeds weakness, and you will be ready to strike when it counts. Now that you understand the power of implied violence, you are closer to commanding respect on a dangerous level. But one tool remains essential, something older than war itself: silence. The silence that makes others uneasy. The silence that makes power palpable. Are you prepared to wield it? Next, we will explore the strategic use of silence, how making others uneasy is your greatest leverage. Prepare yourself, because what comes next is where respect begins to feel like fear. Have you ever noticed how the loudest man in the room often commands the least respect? His words scatter like leaves in a storm. Unfocused, desperate, grasping. Now look to the one who speaks sparingly, who lets the weight of their silence fill the space, who understands that the absence of sound is itself a language. Silence is not emptiness, it is a weapon, a calculated tool of control. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt unsettled by someone's quiet? That moment when their silence speaks louder than any threat or boast. That is power. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, who often said less than was expected. His silence was a wall behind which the empire trembled. His voice, when heard, carried the force of decades of restraint. Or think of Cleopatra, whose silence during critical negotiations left her Roman adversaries guessing, unsure, off balance. She understood that revealing too much is a weakness. Why? Because silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds fear. When you refuse to fill every pause with words, when you resist the urge to explain or justify, you force others to fill the void themselves. And what do they fill it with? Their own doubts, their own fears, their own anxieties. Imagine a meeting where the question is asked, but you offer no immediate answer. The room stiffens. Whispers begin. Eyes dart. What are you thinking? What will you say next? Are you hiding weakness or plotting dominance? They don't know, and that uncertainty places you in control. Silence, then, is a strategic game of chess. Each pause, each unspoken word is a move that provokes thought, suspicion, and calculation. Napoleon Bonaparte, master of psychological warfare, often used silence as a tool to unnerve his generals and diplomats. He would listen intently, say little, and when he finally spoke, his words were calculated to disrupt the equilibrium. The psychological effect was profound. His adversaries often overestimated his plans simply because he withheld details. They feared what they could not hear. You, too, must learn to wield silence like a blade. But silence is dangerous if misused. The empty pause can become awkward if it reveals indecision. It can signal weakness if it betrays hesitation. So how do you command silence? First, cultivate presence. The silence of a man who owns the room is different from the silence of a man who is out of place. Your posture, your gaze, your breathing, all communicate power or uncertainty before you utter a single word. Second, resist the urge to explain. The desire to clarify is the desire to be understood. But in power, being understood is often the enemy of control. Have you noticed how the most dangerous leaders are often vague? They speak in riddles, in half-truths, in promises that seem just out of reach. This keeps followers intrigued, opponents guessing. When you explain, you give away leverage. When you remain silent, you hold the advantage. Third, use silence as a form of emotional manipulation. Have you ever seen someone grow anxious when you simply stop responding? In conversations, social media, or negotiations, the refusal to engage becomes a silent punishment. It forces others to reconsider their approach, to bend to your rhythm. You control the tempo of interaction, and in control lies respect. History offers another lesson from Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor. He was a master of the silent treatment in diplomacy. His silence would frustrate rivals, causing them to expose their plans prematurely, desperate to fill the void. Such silence is not mere absence of sound. It is an active force, an invisible lever pulling the strings of others' fears and ambitions. Now consider your own life. How often do you fill conversations with noise? Words meant to convince, explain, or justify. How often do you feel the compulsion to respond immediately, to assert yourself with volume rather than gravity? Change this. Try silence. In your next interaction, hold back. Watch how others shift. Notice how they seek your approval, your reaction, your confirmation. That seeking is your power. The strategic use of silence is not about being withdrawn or aloof. It is about making silence work for you. It is about turning emptiness into tension, and tension into control. Are you prepared to wield this power? Because silence can be your most loyal ally, or your deadliest weapon, if you learn to use it well. But silence alone is not enough. Soon, we will reveal how calculated cruelty, when and where to strike, must accompany silence to command true, dangerous respect. Will you be the whisper before the storm, or the storm itself? Next, we will delve into the chilling calculus of cruelty, how a single decisive strike can cement your reign. Prepare yourself, because power waits for no one. Do you know why cruelty terrifies and commands respect? Because it is a language understood by all, ancient and primal. But cruelty, like fire, is a tool. It must be wielded with precision, not passion. Have you witnessed the difference between a coward's rage and a master's strike? The coward lashes out repeatedly, wild, desperate, uncontrolled. His cruelty is noise. It diminishes him. The master, however, strikes once, strikes hard, and leaves a wound that will not heal. Consider the story of Augustus Caesar. He inherited a Rome fractured by civil war. Instead of endless bloodshed, he chose calculated cruelty, a single, devastating blow to his enemy's power. The proscriptions, swift, brutal, and absolute. But once executed, he wrested his sword and rebuilt Rome's foundations. Why? Because he understood this truth: cruelty applied all at once breeds respect and ends resistance. Cruelty spread thin and prolonged breeds hatred and revolt. Have you ever watched a wildfire that burns the forest in one fierce wave? It clears the land, leaving fertile soil behind. Compare that to a smoldering ember that lingers, choking the life out slowly. A torment that exhausts both the fire and the forest. Which fire would you rather wield? History remembers Oliver Cromwell, the man who marched his army through England with ruthless efficiency. When he took Drogheda in 1649, he did not hesitate or soften. He executed the garrison completely. The message was clear: resistance meant destruction. That single act ensured that many cities surrendered without a fight. Because cruelty was not endless, it was decisive. In your own battles, how often do you hesitate to strike? How often do you settle for half measures, hoping mercy will spare you backlash? Mercy is a luxury few can afford, but cruelty is a weapon. Do you wield it like a blunt club, reckless and indiscriminate, or do you wield it like a scalpel? Precise, terrifying, surgical. Understand this: the cruel act itself is not the source of power. Power lies in the timing and method of cruelty. Strike when your enemy is vulnerable. When his guard is down, his allies uncertain. Strike hard enough that the fear of recurrence controls others' future actions. Do you see now why a master's cruelty is feared long after the act? Because it is unpredictable, swift, and total. In contrast, the weak reveal their cruelty in fits and starts, a patchwork of rage that can be anticipated and undermined. Look at Ivan the Terrible. His cruelty was legend, yet his erratic violence destabilized his reign. His subjects feared him, yes, but they also conspired against him. Cruelty without strategy is chaos, and chaos breeds ruin, not respect. Do you want to be remembered as a ruthless destroyer, or as a master who rules with an iron hand cloaked in velvet? The answer is in your choice of cruelty's shape and timing. It is better to be feared with purpose than loved in weakness. But beware, cruelty must be earned. If your enemies suspect cruelty without follow-through, they will mock you behind your back. If you threaten but do not act, you become a man of empty words. The greatest leaders of history understood this well. Genghis Khan, for instance, used terror strategically. He struck entire cities only when resistance was certain. When his wrath was feared, many chose submission without a fight, saving lives and solidifying control. You must harness cruelty like a hawk circles before striking. Watch, wait, choose your moment. And when you act, do not hesitate. A single strike, sharp and final, echoes through time. Consider the psychological impact of cruelty. It bypasses reason. It embeds itself in the subconscious as a warning, a primal signal to comply or perish. Are you willing to imprint that signal on those around you? Or will you remain timid, dancing around confrontation, hoping goodwill will protect you? Goodwill is fragile, cruelty is lasting. Now, once you have struck, silence must follow. Do not boast, do not explain. Let your actions speak louder than your words ever could. Let the memory of your cruelty chill their bones in your absence. And this is the secret. When you combine decisive cruelty with calculated silence, you become a force beyond understanding. Feared, respected, and unchallengeable. But remember, this power is not for the faint-hearted. It requires cold calculation, restraint, and above all, patience. Will you dare to strike once and hard? To leave your mark as one who commands dangerous respect? Or will you continue to wield mercy like a shield against the chaos of power? The next lesson will teach you how to combine this cruelty with emotional detachment, the final piece in the puzzle of cold control. Prepare yourself, for true power lies not in passion, but in calm. Next, we delve into emotional detachment, how the master's cold heart controls the game. Are you ready to embrace it? Have you ever watched a man lose himself to rage, despair, or joy, and wondered why no one truly fears him? Emotion is the language of the weak. Passion clouds judgment, betrays intentions, and fractures power. True control requires a colder heart. Ask yourself, do you rule your emotions, or do they rule you? The greatest leaders in history mastered the art of emotional detachment. They wore calm like armor, hiding the storm beneath. Look at Queen Elizabeth I. In the face of rebellion, invasion, and betrayal, she displayed a serene composure that unnerved her enemies and inspired loyalty alike. Her calm was not weakness. It was calculated power. Why does detachment command respect? Because it signals mastery. When you are unmoved by chaos or praise, you become an immovable force. People fear those who are unpredictable, yes, but they respect those who are unshakable. Consider Napoleon at the Battle of Austerlitz. His cool demeanor amidst chaos convinced his generals and troops that victory was certain. His composure was a weapon that shifted the tide before the first sword was drawn. How do you achieve such control? First, understand that emotions are tools, not masters. They can be harnessed or discarded. Second, cultivate awareness. Observe your feelings without attachment. Acknowledge anger, but do not act on it impulsively. Notice fear, but do not let it dictate your decisions. You must become a spectator in your own mind. This detachment does not make you cold or heartless. It makes you calculated, deliberate. Psychologically, emotional control affects others profoundly. Humans seek stability in leaders. When you remain calm under pressure, others project confidence onto you. Whether deserved or not, this projection strengthens your position. Look at Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War. He faced immense pressure, tragedy, and dissent. Yet his composed leadership held the nation together. His detachment from personal grief, while still human, allowed him to focus on the broader game of power and survival. Emotional detachment is a mask that reveals your true strength. You become the calm eye of the storm, while the world rages around you. But beware, the mask must be consistent. If your calm is broken by outbursts or visible weakness, respect evaporates. Do you see how this ties back to earlier lessons? Silence, controlled violence, and calculated cruelty all require this cold composure. You cannot be the dangerous figure you aspire to be if you are undone by your own feelings. You must train yourself like a warrior trains his body. Cold, focused, unyielding. There is a story from the courts of Tsar Ivan IV, known to many as Ivan the Terrible. His infamous fits of rage alienated allies and weakened his power. His inability to control his emotions made him feared, yes, but also vulnerable. Contrast this with Frederick the Great of Prussia. A man of sharp intellect and icy calm, he won battles not just with armies, but with his presence. His composure disarmed adversaries before any conflict began. The psychology behind this is simple. When a leader shows emotional volatility, followers fear instability, they question decisions and hesitate to follow. When a leader is calm, they instill confidence. They project inevitability. They become power itself. Ask yourself, what will you project? Will you be the tempest, unpredictable and destructive? Or the mountain, steady and immovable? To command dangerous respect, you must be the latter. But mastery of detachment does not mean isolation. You must still engage, still connect, but on your terms. Like a puppeteer, you pull the strings with deliberate hands, revealing just enough to guide the dance. Emotions become levers, not chains. Do you have the discipline to be this puppet master? Because power is not given to the passionate or impulsive. It is seized by those who control themselves first. Once you learn to govern your inner world, you will find the outer world bending to your will. You will no longer be tossed by the waves of circumstance. You will be the sea itself. And this is the final truth: the man or woman who can detach, observe, and manipulate both self and others is truly dangerously respected. So now the question remains: are you ready to shed your emotional chains, to become the calm behind the storm, to wield detachment as your greatest weapon? The path forward is not easy, but it is the path of the master. In our next exploration, we will reveal how to bind all these lessons together. The ultimate blueprint for becoming the one who commands fear, respect, absolute control. Prepare yourself, because the game is far from over. Power is a shadow that moves unseen. Control is the art of bending wills without chains. You do not command by force alone. You command by shaping thought, by guiding fear, by planting silence where doubt can grow. The most dangerous respect is the kind they never realize they give, because true mastery is invisible. Ask yourself, who holds the strings in your life? Are you the puppeteer or the puppet? The knowledge you now possess is a weapon. Use it wisely. Use it ruthlessly. Do not seek applause. Seek control. If this darkness speaks to you, if you crave the power to move unseen, comment below with your thoughts. Let us know how you will wield these lessons. Subscribe for more truths that the weak dare not whisper. And share this video. Let those who hunger for power find their path. Remember, respect without awareness is the deadliest of all. Be dangerous, be invisible, be respected.